Last time we discussed the Dominion War, dozens of jem'hadar ships were screaming out of the wormhole. The only defenses the Federation and Bajorans had was Deep Space Nine, the Defiant, and a bird of prey. Those on the station expected this to be the last stand for them. What actually occurred was, arguably, far, far worse. If you haven't yet, please watch the video in the description or click in the top right hand corner, as a lot of the two episodes we are covering today have been already addressed there. Continuing on with the analyzation of In Purgatory's shadow and by Inferno's light, we have already discussed how everything up to this point ensured that a Dominion fleet of around 50 ships are able to enter into the Alpha Quadrant. Once arriving, the Dominion would not engage the station but turn and set course for Cardassia. Ducat's ship falls into formation with it, but not before being ordered back when Kira mistakes his movements for an attack run. Ducat advises Kira that Cardassia had, in fact, joined the Dominion. And then, Kira decides that, screw the fact that they had all just survived, she was angry at Ducat, and by God, she's going to hurt him. Even if it means getting every man, woman, and child killed on Deep Space Nine. She orders the Defiant to attack Ducat's ship. Jadzia retorts that the ship was already out of range, and I'm sure praying that Kira wouldn't realize that they could technically use impulse or warp to catch up. I'm going to pause a moment here and actually discuss Ducat's decision, as well as some of the Cardassian governments, I'm sure at least some of the upper echelon had to agree to this, to join the Dominion. If you've watched me for a measure of time, you probably know how I feel, but for those who haven't gotten mad because I understand how things work realistically, I honestly cannot fault the Cardassians for joining the Dominion. The Klingons attacked the Union for no reason, claiming the Cardassians were under the control of the Dominion. The Federation didn't buy this, of course, and saved the leader, sure, but didn't help the Cardassians militarily. The infrastructure of the Cardassian Union was destroyed, and they were barely able to survive. So if they are going to be blamed for being Dominion puppets, might as well reap the benefits of actually being said puppets. Sisko and the others look at this as some big betrayal, but it honestly isn't. I dare say the Vulcans would call it logical. While I understand that all of this was orchestrated by the Dominion to a degree, you have to remember that the Klingons didn't exactly give up their territory or raids after Martok was found to be a changeling. And even after Starfleet proved that Martok was a changeling, what did the Federation do? Nothing. Additionally, we know that the Maquis began attacking the Cardassians in earnest, and the Federation was so busy with other things, they no longer kept them in control. Remember, the Maquis were winning the war as pseudo-allies of the Klingons, a topic we will get into in the near future, worry not. The Cardassians didn't fail the Alpha Quadrant. The Alpha Quadrant failed the Cardassians. So with the Federation arguably tacitly allowing the attacks on Cardassian space and the Klingons seemingly unstoppable, the Dominion is the best option for the survival of the Cardassian people. And so, with the Union's joining of the Dominion, the Founders have a foothold within the Alpha Quadrant. While I wanted to point out the hostile nature of sending dozens of warships into Bajoran space, it's not like the Federation really observed the borders of the Dominion. They even balked at the idea of not being allowed to go wherever they wanted in some episodes. So I guess we'll just call it even for the Dominion doing it here, given how much infringement the Federation is known for. But I will say, this is an extremely aggressive action by the Dominion and one not to be taken lightly. However, even with this move, technically the Founders haven't done anything wrong publicly. Yet. They've moved ships into Cardassian space, but given that Cardassia is now a member state, it makes sense. The real concern is when Ducat's speech says he will be retaking everything that was lost by Cardassia, and then reaches out to Sisko. He encourages Sisko to push the Federation to join the Dominion. However, Sisko declines, and Ducat states that he intends to retake everything that was lost, including Deep Space Nine. The captain tells the leader of Cardassia to come and get it. While DS9 prepares for the inevitable attack, the changeling Bashir advises they should start blood screenings immediately, only proving that this methodology doesn't work. To be fair, most of the crew doesn't know that it doesn't work, so they will continue forward. It wouldn't be long into the preparations when a Klingon fleet arrives from Cardassian space. The ships request assistance for aid as the vessels are badly damaged and there are many wounded Klingons. Gowron explains how the Empire has been defeated in Cardassian space. His plan is to pull all of his assets back to their borders and make one final stand against the Dominion, for the Empire to go out in a blaze of glory. Sisko, and ironically the changeling Bashir, convinces Gowron to sign the Khitomer Peace Accords again, creating a buffer zone between the Dominion and the Klingon Empire. Curiously, the Dominion and the Cardassians would not pursue the Klingons into Federation space, only removing them from Cardassian territory. Which, again, isn't unreasonable and in fact does add some credibility to the fact that the Dominion just wants to help. In theory, just looking at it from the perspective of someone who is in the Alpha Quadrant, the Dominion arrives with 50 or so warships and heads for Cardassian space to help them rebuild. We know they had a changeling infiltrator in the Klingon Empire, but the propaganda machine from the Dominion might try to spin that as them stopping the Klingons from harming more Cardassians. Again, we, as the audience, know that the Dominion is evil, we know better, but from a random person only reading the news from both sides, it's not as cut and dry. Especially when the Dominion just stops at the borders of Cardassia, at least for the moment. While all of this is going on, the changeling infiltrator continues working to sabotage Deep Space Nine, utilizing an industrial replicator. When the crew discovers the replicator's use, they have security begin pulling double shifts and Sisko asks the Klingons for help. Interestingly, Kira notes how times have changed with the Klingon Empire helping. For those of us who have come from the TNG era, we know the Klingons to be the allies of the Federation for longer than not. But from a Bajoran perspective, the Klingons had been the enemy, attacking and harming the people of Bajor, and now they were helping to protect it. It's a nice piece that adds to the universe and could be missed if you are someone who watches all the series. Then, we come to the final confrontation. Dukat has stated that he will be retaking the station. A combined fleet of Klingon ships, Starfleet ships, runabouts, and Deep Space Nine stand ready to fight the Dominion. Suddenly, a Romulan fleet decloaks, requesting permission to defend Deep Space Nine. As the defenders of Bajor stand ready, none of them are able to lock on to the incoming Dominion forces. Unfortunately, their targeting sensors can't find any actual ships out there. At this time, the station receives an emergency message from the Gamma Quadrant, from the Doctor. Given that the Doctor was supposedly on the station, Sisko realizes what has occurred, and they are able to determine that the Changeling has commandeered the Yukon. Sisko orders the Defiant to destroy the runabout, but the Changeling was able to modify the vessel so the Defiant isn't able to destroy it. So apparently the Dominion are able to modify the shields of a glorified bus, so that weapons designed to kill Borg can't impact it. Okay. A bit of a continuity gaffe with this as well. If you remember, Kira ordered the Defiant open fire on Dukat's bird of prey, and Dax says that he was out of range. And yet, they are able to attack the Yukon. The wormhole is much closer than the sun to the station. There's really no way the bird of prey could have been out of weapons range. I think this really confirms my theory that Dax was lying to Kira because she didn't want to die, nor want all the people on the station to die either. With no options left, Kira takes the Defiant to warp in a solar system, which is completely ludicrous, and we don't have dozens of examples of them doing this exact thing in other episodes, where sometimes it's a crazy big deal and sometimes it's not. The Defiant locks a tractor beam onto the Yukon, with the Yukon still having its shields up apparently, and is able to ensure that the ship won't reach the sun, which was the designated target of the Changeling to create a supernova that would destroy Bajor and the station, but somehow not the wormhole. The Changeling, and all 3 Starfleet officers on board, are killed. Somehow Sisko instantly knows what was occurring even though the Defiant hasn't let him know, and a scan for the Dominion fleet shows that the warp signatures that had been there were actually faked. This would be, in my opinion, the second largest and public mistake and action of war that an ordinary citizen in the Alpha Quadrant would be able to observe. The Dominion were willing to destroy an entire planet to take out the Federation and Klingons. Romulans were just the icing on the cake. This one action would show the Dominion going from being benefactors only wanting to help to showing their real bloody nature. And after all of this, we see that Sisko and the Federation agree to allow a permanent Klingon contingent on the station, on Deep Space Nine, which is totally insane and couldn't happen. I am constantly told there isn't a fleet at Deep Space Nine because the Bajorans would never allow it, and the Federation doesn't get to decide what happens to Deep Space Nine. Except they're allowing the Klingons to stay here and deciding what happens on Deep Space Nine, and we would see ships there from now on. And just to put a finer point on this, the government that was attacking and slaughtering Bajorans and was known to be bloodthirsty is now the ones protecting them. But the Bajorans get to decide who's on the station. It is important to remember that technically, the Dominion War hasn't started yet, but the Dominion Cold War was about to heat up, and it would heat up fast. But that's a few episodes away. Stay tuned as next time we discuss the betrayal of Dukat and the Maquis question.